It's great to be here today. Cool to see so much interest from the audience in today's topic, how to automate your Salesforce Data Dictionary. Super excited. Obviously, the concept of data dictionary is not new, but implementing and maintaining an effective data dictionary for Salesforce has been a challenge for some or for many. It's cool today we have Sarah and Kylie who are leading the charge and will get share their expertise of what good looks like and how they progress from kind of where they were to an effective use of a data dictionary. And so it's really cool that they're willing to spend their time and share their expertise with the rest of the market and our audience here. Goal is hopefully everyone gets a couple of key takeaways, a couple nuggets they can take back to their organization and help make progress on your own journey. Logistics wise, it will try to keep it pretty interactive. So I'll be monitoring the Q&A throughout. If there are topics that come up, based on what you hear that you want us to double click on, let us know and we'll try to interject that. And if not, we'll definitely save some time at the end for Q&A. And it's Friday, so we'll make sure that we wrap this in 30 minutes and everyone can go about the rest of their Friday and enjoy the weekend. Sound good? All right, so let's get into it. And maybe we're starting with you, Kylie. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. It'd be great for you. Yeah, it'd be great to give a little background on kind of who you are, what informs your perspective for today's topic, and and maybe what plans for the weekend. Plans for the weekend since it is Friday. That's kind of fun, right?
Oh man, putting me on the spot there. Hi everyone. I'm Kylie Powell. I am the VP of Business Systems and Data at UPSTACK. So Arovy is a tool that all of my teams use quite a bit. And my plans for the weekend, geez. I have my nephew's birthday party. That might be the most exciting thing on the docket for the weekend. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And Sarah, same for you. Kind of a little background on who you are, what informs your perspective, and plans for the weekend.
Yeah. So my name's Sarah. I work at Meritain Health. We're a part of the CVS Aetna Enterprise. I've been at Meritain about 8 years now and held the different reporting, data roles, and right now my official title is Senior Salesforce Project Lead. Weekend plans, not much going on over here. Enjoy the nice weather. We're finally getting out of like the 90s over here, so get outside.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Sarah is from Buffalo, so go Bills.
Yeah,
for any people for a variety of different places. So cool. Yeah, thanks for joining and sharing your expertise. We'll maybe just a quick overview for those that aren't familiar with Arovy. Arovy, we are relatively new to the Salesforce ecosystem, although our solutions are not. And so some of you may have been familiar with Sonar software. Sonar software we recently rebranded to Arovy. But we've been serving the ecosystem since 2019. Primarily, I guess, initially started doing impact analysis and change management, helping Salesforce customers optimize, how they manage and manage change to their environments. And part of the reason for the name change is we've continued to expand upon our capabilities from that to do things more around the data dictionary, data governance, even data security and data protection, along with things like connected apps and integration monitoring. And so that's who Arovy is. Check us out. We're on LinkedIn. We have a website, all those types of things. But that's who we are, and that kind of informs why this topic is really relevant for us, and why we wanted to share some of the great success stories that Sarah and Kylie will share on their experience in building a data dictionary. And high level context: what is a data dictionary? Data dictionary is not a new concept, right? Data dictionaries have been around for quite a long time across all different platforms, all different systems. But it has been a challenge for many customers within Salesforce. How do they build a data dictionary of their Salesforce data? Maybe it started as a CRM, fairly simplistic in terms of the fields that you're using. I've used, as many in the ecosystem have expanded upon that, gotten more complex. They've captured more data. They have more stakeholders, more users. And so the kind of the legacy approaches of capturing and maintaining a data dictionary in Excel or Google Sheets or offline. Maybe worked 4 or 5 years ago, but now given the kind of the evolution of how many in the ecosystem are using Salesforce, and given some of the needs of sharing Salesforce data, across teams, across stakeholders, across things like AI, Agentforce, the need to do a data dictionary differently is more important now than ever. And capturing an effective data dictionary that persists, that is always available, that is shareable, that really informs how you leverage the data that you're capturing in Salesforce to, one, manage processes within Salesforce, but then two, manage processes out Salesforce becomes more and more critical. And so today we'll go into a little bit more of kind of what does that mean, and what does good look like from a data dictionary standpoint. And so, Kylie, Sarah, anything to add on kind of your definition of a data dictionary before we proceed, or critical important factors? Good.
For me, I think you nailed it. Yeah, really critical if you want to keep your data clean and keep everyone in line, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely necessary for informing your end users as well. See that.
Cool. Amazing. So let's talk a little bit about your journeys, and Sarah, you're on my screen first, left to right. So why don't we start with you? Kind of why was a data dictionary important? Kind of what were the drivers internally that made you realize that you needed to do things differently? Who were the stakeholders that were involved? Maybe a little of the context of kind of where you started would be helpful.
Sure. I think, there were a couple different factors that made us realize we need to document this and get a data dictionary. One of them was we were coming up on custom limits, and we needed to clean up the system, and we didn't have anything documented on what was being used, how it was being used. And so it made it nearly impossible to try to track down stakeholders, especially when we have an organization as large as ours. We're at almost 60,000 fields, and it wasn't possible to do it manually. So our cleanup efforts were a big driving force, as well as kind of end users coming to us and saying, hey, you rolled this out and nobody told us, and now our reports are broken and stuff like that. So kind of twofold, making a better end user experience, and then the necessary, we need to clean up our system and track things better.
100%. Was it similar for you, Kylie, in terms of kind of what led you to change the approach on the data dictionary?
Yeah, I've actually implemented Arovy's data dictionary at 2 different companies. So I had very different experiences on both implementations, but the first one was very similar to Sarah's. We had to clean it up. We hadn't started anywhere. And so obviously through that process, came across a number of fields that we could deprecate, got a lot of benefit out of it, and really helped kind of wrangle the troops, the definitions, so that people could centrally use it, right? But at UPSTACK, where I'm at now, we're a company of, I think we just acquired our 34th company. So a lot of people speaking different languages when it comes to kind of terms that we use within the business. And we just went through a Salesforce reimplementation. And so I actually got to implement the data dictionary as we built out a greenfield Salesforce, which was ideal. So a very different experience the second time around, but either way has the same benefits, right? As Sarah mentioned, we need everyone using data the same way for reporting. And so having that data dictionary was a really great way to roll out the new system rather than having to go back and clean up historical, which again, I've been there as well. But yeah, equally valuable in both scenarios.
Yeah, and I imagine the starting points were different in terms of stakeholders from those 2 scenarios. Maybe can you talk a little bit more, delve a little bit more into like how did you engage the stakeholders? Who were they? Kind of what were the value that they were, why they were participating and spending time on it?
In the first one, it was more out of necessity. Again, we were hitting limits. We had a lot of people using different fields to try and get the same data point, and as a result, showing up to kind of important meetings with different metrics. And so finance was a big stakeholder in that one, but also just the technical teams because of the tech debt that we had acquired, and we were at a kind of tipping point there. For UPSTACK, I went into this knowing the benefits of the Arovy Data Dictionary. So I would say I was kind of the main stakeholder, but certainly since the head of our CX org, was a huge kind of supporter of it, because very hard to support your customers if you don't trust the data or don't know where to find that data, as well as finance because of the same kind of reporting impacts that they've had historically with not knowing, simple things. Someone's using the term customer differently, right? That you can run into some real issues in a leadership meeting and come to very different conclusions on analytics if you're not using terms the same way.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You think, customer is customer. You think, revenue is revenue. But if you have 4 fields for customer and 6 fields for revenue, and each have different formulas, it can be very, you can get very, different outcomes when you run reports, or very stakeholders that have access to those fields run the wrong reports. So yeah, I guess as it relates to kind of stakeholders and kind of rollout, maybe Sarah, to you, like how did you engage the stakeholders to build it? I guess what was your process like to start refining and building an accurate data dictionary that then was usable by them?
Right. So, like I had said, it was difficult for us because we've gone 10 years without documenting anything. And so, I definitely had to rely on my expertise from previous reporting roles and just start with what we knew and kind of grow from there. Connecting to Arovy and the automation made it so much easier. But a lot, because we're trying to play catch up, just a lot of tracking people down. And where it shows you, I would say the reports where the fields are being used is a great place to start. So it at least gives you somewhere if, everybody else is pointing the finger at who owns what. So that was definitely a key starting point, is seeing where the fields are being used, especially in reports, to kind of track down the information of who's holding it, who's the stakeholder for those fields.
Yeah, 100%. And I just saw there no questions, but Go Bills, another Buffalo person. So appreciate that, Larissa. Maybe I guess I don't see any other questions. Maybe Kylie, in terms of kind of additional either insights or roadblocks that for folks that are earlier in the journey, or maybe just starting their migration, any tips or things that you learned roadblock wise that maybe that was surprising or that you expected and you didn't have to deal with?
Yeah, I think I don't think it's never going to be perfect. So I would say start small and roll it out. There's so many pieces of the data dictionary that Arovy comes with already, even prior to defining everything, because it is a massive undertaking, especially if you're in a position like Sarah, where you have 60,000 fields. That can seem overwhelming to put a data dictionary together for that amount, but you can still roll out the data dictionary with the fields provided and get user adoption as you work on building those out. Using tags was huge for me in both implementations to kind of segregate what fields and prioritize. Ownership was a huge one as well. I mean, I think it's really made more of our end users accountable to data by having the data dictionary. So anyway, you can start small and still get a lot of benefit from it, and get people using this tool. I think it's, Brian, you're right. It's not a new term for people in the technology realm, but a lot of our end users, this is new to them, and just showing them that this is a centralized thing that's maintained, right? It's plugged directly into our system. It's a stable place they can go as a starting point while you're building it out. Has seemed to work really well. People are now, end users are using this in in their everyday processes. I was on a call this morning where someone pulled it up because we were having a bit of an internal conflict on how we were identifying what a sub-agent was in this scenario. And so just getting it in the hands of end users early and getting adoption has really helped me. And it's still not, I'm still working on compliance fields and things like that, but that shouldn't stop you from rolling it out.
Yeah, I think you hit you don't want, if you over architect towards the end goal, sometimes you can maybe add a lot of steps and a lot of details that prevent progress. So I think both of your points around making progress, sharing wins, planting flags, getting users and stakeholders comfortable with the idea and understanding the value that they're going to get out of it gets creates additional buy-in that allows for success, knowing that it's never going to be perfect, but if you don't start improving somewhere, maybe you never start improving anywhere, right? There's a couple of questions. Why don't we go to the next slide? We have a couple. I think we have just a few more slides, and then we'll go to the questions. We'll do a lightning round. Automation versus manuals. So Sarah, I guess, did you have Excel spreadsheets? Did you have alternative attempts at building a data dictionary, or was it just something that was never done and didn't know it was possible, or was never prioritized, or didn't believe was possible?
It was never prioritized. I attempted a manual Excel data dictionary, and I can tell you it was, I think I got 2 objects done, and then we had a release, and it is just not possible. I learned very quickly that, Excel is not going to work for us. Manual is not going to work. So that's what led us to finding Arovy.
Yep. And how about you, Kylie? Maybe before the first time you deployed, like, did you have Excel? Was there other attempts to build this information in other forms, or just it wasn't prioritized and not possible?
Yeah, at UPSTACK, prior to me joining, they had started it in Excel, but even by the time I joined, it had become out of date, right? It gets out of date almost immediately, and then no one looks at it anymore. So Excel is a great place to start, but it's never going to keep up with your metadata changes or your schema changes. It was a starting point, but nothing like we've been able to do within Arovy. And, the trust thing is big because as soon as someone starts to look at something and they see something incorrect, they won't look at it again. Our engineering team was one of the first early adopters, more so for like self-service on what fields can I use for things that we're developing. And I had heard stories about them building out development based off of what they had seen in the Excel data dictionary. And of course, by the time they developed against it, that field was no longer being used. So trust was a big thing, and Excel is going to get out of date very quickly.
100%. Yeah, and it comes back to that adoption. Both great points. If there's you can pull people together and start rolling things out and getting confidence, but getting momentum. But as soon as someone doesn't trust the outcome, it's a lot more difficult to bring them into meetings. It's a lot more difficult to get them to update the fields and the things that you need from them because they have other priorities and they don't trust. And so, building that buy-in and starting, I think for those that are listening, starting small and making progress, planting a flag, getting the stakeholders on board and really getting it usable and adding value is more important than getting it all documented and before you turn things on, more of an MVP type of rollout. So I think we have, I think we're going to go to lessons learned. We have about 9 minutes left. We'll go to lessons learned, but maybe there's a couple of questions that have come in. Why don't we start with the questions and maybe that'll spark some of the lessons. So question for you, Kylie, 34 acquired companies. How did you get them to speak the same language?
It's still a work in progress, but the data dictionary helps a lot. Every time someone tries to dispute how we should be using a term, I just send them the data dictionary, and everyone's pretty well versed at UPSTACK now that this is our source of truth of how we use these terms. And so it shuts down those discussions pretty quickly. So it's still a work in progress, but at least I have somewhere to go to say, we've had these discussions with leadership. This is what we've all aligned on. how we calculate MRR, whatever it might be. Again, even something as simple as that. And so it's just a reminder, and again, getting people to adopt it, but it has hugely helped.
Cool. Good question. Makes sense. We'll go to you, Sarah. How about tags? What are tags?
I feel like I'm being quizzed now.
Yeah. Yeah. How well do you know the Arovy product? So tags, tags are specific to Arovy, but yeah, we'll quiz you on it.
Yeah, so tags for me is an easy way to kind of group things together. So I use tags a lot for different departments, and so I can pull up across different objects and flows what that department's using. We have CPQ in our system as well, so I'll use a CPQ tag across things. For me, it's an easy way to kind of group things together that are across the system, not just on one object.
You did great. You did great. And we're happy to give a demo for anyone that wants to see how they can use tags in their own environments. Great. Let's see. Basically, yeah, it's metadata to group combinations of data elements specific to the product. You have another question here. How do you and I'll ask the question and either of you can jump in. How do you establish trust rolling out a data dictionary ahead of time and then going back and amending defined fields? So maybe like how do you operationalize the initial rollout and how do you maintain it from that point forward as change happens with the stakeholders?
You want to start, Sarah? Do you want me to start?
You can start. I'll add if I want to.
Okay, yeah. I mean, again, I was in kind of a nice position in initially rolling it out with the Salesforce build. But maintenance is really key. I think what we've learned works best for us is we just have a weekly meeting with our data operations, Salesforce team, change management, and the head of our data assurance who owns our data dictionary to review changes in the org from the prior week and upcoming changes and who's responsible for getting the definition. Hopefully at that point, the Salesforce admins have already kind of done that as part of their build out, but we do a weekly cadence. Obviously the reminders out of the Arovy platform on changes to metadata help a ton, but that's what we've found is best for maintaining it, just making sure we have a forum if there are questions. And the data dictionary is sent out every week with our Salesforce release notes when we do Salesforce deployments. So again, the company's gotten pretty used to having that resource available. And so it's just important that we maintain it, but that weekly cadence has helped a lot.
100%.
Yeah.
Sarah, anything to add?
Yeah, and I'll just say, when we originally rolled it out, I did start with our power user teams. Like we had talked about, starting small and starting somewhere. And so knowing the teams that are using Salesforce the most and their impact, I started with them. And then going forward, like Kylie mentioned, we have a process now that we're very user driven. So if a user is making a request, they have to submit a field definition, they have to submit ownership. And that's been a really good way for us to kind of keep building as we go.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And we have one more question, and then we'll be able to get one more. How did you get your company on board with having a data dictionary? Did you have to sell the idea to get people on board, even just to start building it out doing it as an initiative? Was there a fail point trigger that said we can't no longer not have one? How did you get the company on board?
I can start. So I think for us, Salesforce has become more and more a big tool that we use. And so there was definitely a need for the maintenance part of it. And, like I had mentioned before, limiting negative impacts to teams and power users and reporting for management. So it was a lot of just showing, how far behind we were and how we could really use this to make our data and our analytics better. And the trust for leadership in reports, because they've seen bad reports and they've seen the bad data. So that was a big selling point for them, that this would clean it up.
Yep. Yeah, a report generated on 1 week shows one set of data, and the same theoretical report created with a few changes 2 weeks later shows other data. That's a common trigger that we see. How about you, Kylie? Anything else to add on getting buy-in or getting on board that this is something that should be prioritized?
Yeah, in my prior company, a lot of it was around the tech debt cleanup and the benefit to getting that cleaned up, right? The alternative is re-implementing Salesforce, which can be or not the only alternative, right? But one alternative was to re-implement, which can be very expensive, and incorporating a tool like Arovy could help that without a large initiative like that. At UPSTACK, again, because we're so heavy with acquisition, it was a pretty known issue that we had around using the same terms for different things, and just really pushed that this is it's harder to do after the fact, right, than rolling it out with a data dictionary. And so was able to get buy-in early on from leadership to do it out of the gate. And it, again, hugely beneficial to us.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and you've kind of seen both worlds of doing this after the fact, which is still very important, but the implementation and operational process is very different than a net new rollout. So that's it's a certainly amazing experience to have both views of how to be successful. We have just a couple minutes left. Yeah, maybe final thoughts. There's a couple of questions, but we'll follow up offline. Final thoughts, Kylie. Final thoughts. What should people do Monday if after listening here today?
Yeah, I really can't recommend it enough. It's really helped facilitate a lot of kind of hard conversations within the business. It's also starting to unlock our ability to use AI, right? And plug our data dictionary into outside tooling and outside models to make sure that as we build out an AI program, it is utilizing the terms the way we use them as well. So the need is just going to grow for you to have one if you don't already. But yeah, as a starting point, I would say try and start it in Excel and see how quickly it gets out of date, and you'll be sold on buying a more scalable tool.
Yeah, Excel is, yeah. I'm a PC person, so I still use Excel. Yeah,
Excel is great.
it's kind of a funny idea, right? Yeah, Excel. How about you, Sarah? Final thoughts for
Yeah,
those on Monday. What should they do?
I know that we've talked about the end users and report users, but I would also consider your developers too and their time, because they have given the feedback that this makes their job a whole heck of a lot easier and faster. So that's been a big plus for us, is speeding up the development time, and unlocking more resources on that end.
That's a great point. Yeah, the more and more questions that go back to the developer to understand things, the less time they have to develop, right? And they want to develop. They're great at it. They want to be helpful, but they also have progress that they need to make on the functionality side, which the questions that could be answered by an effective data dictionary that persists helps eliminate. Great points.
A lot of self-service. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, really appreciate both of you spending time with us on a Friday. Hopefully this was productive for the audience. Kylie and Sarah, tremendous resources. Arovy, we've got content on LinkedIn. We've got a website. I think we do have a website, so check us out. And if there's anything, and connect, if there's anything that we can do to help, obviously this is a topic that's really important to us, to help customer scale. If we can help, let us know. And Kylie, enjoy your birthday party, and Sarah, enjoy the weather, and have an amazing weekend. And we'll chat with everyone soon.
Thank you.